Hi again then guys, and welcome to another installment of Course of the Beards and Cars podcast, which you can grab in its audio-only form via the SoundCloud link down below. And for this pick, as you saw from the title and from the thumb, I'm talking about one of, surprisingly to me at least, still the most controversial recent-ish developments in the Gran Turismo series. And that is the introduction, you could strongly argue before GT6, but definitely in GT6 and now in GT Sport as well, of course, of the Vision GT program. Now, the reason why I say you could argue GT6 being the first is because technically there were a couple of vehicles even years before GT6 that ran in a similar philosophy. The obvious choice, of course, being the GT by Citroën. Many of the current VGTs even still have a similar shape to that. But of course, even further back than that, we have the fan favourite Nike 1, the 2022 model. A very unique little car. I believe, if I recall correctly, that was first introduced in Gran Turismo 4. It was an interesting car. It had something like an 8-speed gearbox. You were kind of in a laying down position. Very cool looking vehicle. Looked kind of like a humanoid shape as it was designed to, with the hubless rims, which I love the look of on any vehicle. And it was pretty quick. It could do like 230 miles an hour, I think, something like that. It was an interesting concept. Of course, the GT by Citroën has much more in common with the majority of them, which is like this hyper-exaggerated version of that company's design philosophy. And since then, the vast majority of Vision GTs have had that same approach. Far fewer of them tend to be the kind that I like, which is the total pie-in-the-sky experimental ones like the Chaparral and the Tomahawk. I love the ones like that. In fact, one of the ones that I was looking forward to the most was the Bertone, which is a crazy-looking, almost Batman Tumbler-esque looking vehicle. Not everyone liked it. I was really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, that one's not coming, and the majority of them, as I said, tend to be the more marketing-based ones like the BMW, the Mitsubishi, etc. There's nothing inherently wrong with those, it just doesn't excite me as much when it basically just looks like a rolling advert for the manufacturer rather than something exciting and truly visionary. Now, as far as these picks go, the great thing about this is, A, this is not a predictions video, so you are not constrained by any kind of likelihood. You could literally choose any manufacturer you want. In fact, technically, you could even do something crazy like choose a motorcycle manufacturer instead, which is certainly something that I considered doing. Now, I've stuck to cars for the sake of it, and I've also decided to limit myself to 5. Now, you could do more than 5 if you wanted to. Obviously, don't make it like 100 manufacturers long, but I've kept it to 5 so that I don't cover too many that other people will say again, just to keep it fresh and unique. Now, the first one on my list is, of course, a brand that's close to my heart, Maserati. Maserati is my favourite manufacturer overall, and I would love to see a Maserati Vision GT. Now, the reason why I think this one actually, talking to the realism side of these, suggestions rather than predictions, is that this one actually could happen. Maserati is doing very well in terms of vehicle production. They have more models in the range, I believe, than they ever had before. They also have a much more mainstream approach than they've ever had before with SUVs and four-door cars, etc. Now, we do have the Gran Turismo, of course, the namesake of the game, and they clearly have a relationship with Maserati already, because it is in the game. So as far as these suggestions in my top 5 go, it's actually by far the easiest of them for it to happen, because the other 4 that I would like to see have no current connection to the game at all. Now, in terms of what kind of vehicle they could go for, I believe that Maserati is less an experimental company like Chaparral, and probably more the kind of company where if they did make a Vision GT, I believe they would probably draw on a combination of their exotic heritage and especially their racing heritage. So I could fully see something like an evolution of the MC12 kind of idea, maybe further on than an MC20, which is visually more restrained than the MC12, but something with that kind of almost futuristic Le Mans prototype kind of shape. I would actually love to see something like a Maserati Mazda LM55 level machine, that kind of performance, maybe with a larger V12, maybe Ferrari sourced. Or, if Maserati did want to tie into their current plans, they do plan to have hybrid and all-electric vehicles in future. In fact, if I recall correctly, I believe the MC20 is in fact going to be a hybrid. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if, for instance, you had something like a turbo-aspirated V12, maybe a V8 in the back, and then maybe electric hybrid system on the front, making it kind of like an LMPH car for the game. In terms of appearance, well, of course my hopes would be high because it's Maserati after all. They make very flamboyant design cars. Of course I would love to see that, so that is my first pick. My second pick is one which a lot of people probably wouldn't care less about, but I believe that now more than ever is actually a fantastic time to do this from a marketing point of view, which once again kind of goes against my favourite Vision GTs, but bear with me, I think some of you might like this idea, because my second pick is Hummer. I would love to see a Hummer Vision GT. And one of the crucial differences between this and the others is that this would be a truly loyal build, something which is quintessentially Hummer, but at the same time is looking to the future. A lot of these cars are, looking, as I said, to the future of their design language in vehicles that have no connection to the Vision GT whatsoever. Other ones are completely pie in the sky. As I said, there's never going to be a Chaparral 2X on the street, but that doesn't mean there can't be one in the game. I think Hummer could do a bit of both, because I would want it to be the first fully authentic Vision GT truck or SUV, just unapologetically big and off-road in nature. Plus, I say it's a perfect time to do it because they are making the all-electric Hummer. It's got 1,000 horsepower, 11,500 pound-feet of torque at the wheels. It's going to be a monster. Now imagine something with that kind of powertrain. Let's be honest, you wouldn't even need to take it any further than that. That's already a beast. But then imagine it with some kind of futuristic body. Not so much a Tesla Cybertruck, maybe something more like the Hummer HX Warthog concept. That kind of chunky, really rugged-looking, pure off-roader, which at the same time as looking to the future with the design and with the electronic drive, or electric drive I should say, also harkens back in a very authentic way, I believe, to Hummer's origins with the H1. A true off-roader, not something just driven with spinners and underglow neon. To me, that would be a cool combination of past and future, which would be authentic to the Hummer brand, and I think it would be really cool to have something like an SUV or a truck with really big, maybe futuristic tyres. Imagine, for instance, honeycomb tyres in the game instead of having air in them. It would look really cool and would doubtless be very fun to drive off-road. My third pick is the one on the list which I believe would easily be the craziest. And the reason why I say that is because not only is it one of my favourite brands, my top 5 in fact, but they have set a precedent time and time again for making some of the craziest motorsport-related vehicles and some of the wackiest vehicle designs, even on the street, of all time. Of course, I am referring to my favourite American manufacturer, Pajamas. Pajamas, of course, is already in Gran Turismo, in some of the games at least, only one vehicle. They've got a decent showing in Forza as well, with the Esperante GTLM, the LMP, which I adore, the open-top version in particular, and of course the controversially styled Abruzzi Spirit of Le Mans. I love all of their cars, some certainly more than others, but I love how wacky they are. And crucially, the reason why I believe Pajamas would be such a perfect fit, I mean maybe even the most perfect fit of any of these 5 for a Vision GT car, is because they've basically spent their entire business life being the equivalent of a real-life Vision GT program. Every vehicle that they make, especially motorsport related, is wacky and futuristic. Many of us know about the GTR1, commonly called the Esperante, but technically that's not its name, the silver one in Gran Turismo, the Batmobile of race cars. It's a great car, but they also completely did it an injustice because it's way too heavy in the game. The real car weighed 900 kilos. In the game it weighs 1150, so it doesn't stand a chance against the other prototypes, even the GT1s. In real life, that same car, with its authentic weight, raced at Sebring, and the guy in charge of the event, who I believe, if memory served, actually owned Sebring at the time, who was driving a Ferrari F333 SP prototype, a screaming V12 monster, could not overtake the Panos on the straights, and he specifically told them that they would be running with something like 100 pounds of ballast in the race. They later took the car to another event, And the car was also deemed still to be too fast, where they added another 300 pounds of ballast. The GTR1 was a car that was so quick that they just kept making it heavier and heavier, just like Gran Turismo did. So Panos, they're an unsung hero as an entire company. What many of you might not know as well is that another vehicle from a completely different manufacturer in the Gran Turismo series is a Panos, the Delta Wing. The Nissan Delta Wing, the crazy-looking, narrow front-end dart of a machine, those two machines, in black and chrome forms, are often thought of as being, in effect, Nissans. Nissan-powered, and later on there was the closed-top version, and Nissan even had their own intentions. A concept, I believe, was even made for a street-legal version. Now, what many of you might not know is that Nissan did not design that car. Panos did, and Don Panos, before he passed away within the last couple of years, actually sued Nissan for trying to steal the design and make it as their own. Panos has consistently made some of the most forward-thinking race cars of all time. And as if that wasn't enough, here's another thing that you might not know. The GTR1, once again that we have in the game, had another version called the Q9 in the 90s, which was black with lightning effects painted onto it, nicknamed Sparky. And although it wasn't a great success, it was the first modern hybrid prototype. Way before Audi and Peugeot and Toyota were doing it. Panos is consistently innovating, forward-thinking. They may not win as much as an Audi or a Bentley or a Peugeot, but just like Chaparral, even though they don't always win, they make legendary cars that really do try to reinvent the wheel, and more often than not, actually kind of do. The 2J, for instance, which many of us love so much, the legendary fan car, that car never won a race. But look how forward-thinking it was way back in 1970. So forward-thinking, in fact, that the Red Bull today imitated its design. So that to me is easily my third pick. I believe that out of my 5, the Panos would easily be the craziest one. In fact, I don't even want to predict what the Panos could be like because I believe they would come up with something insane. It could be something Delta Wing based, it could be a prototype hybrid, a hypercar hybrid, such as the newer Le Mans regulations. I really have no idea what they would do. Or Panos being what they are, without the restrictions and limitations of regulations, imagine what they could do in a similar way to the Chaparral 2X. Imagine what Panos' vision of the future could be. Something like the Chaparral. I could fully see them coming up with something that wacky, and I would absolutely love to see it. And speaking of wacky, that brings me to my second to last pick. TVR. I believe that a TVR Vision GT would also have quite a lot of potential to be wacky, although I do believe TVR might be just a little bit more restrained than something like Chaparral or Panos would be, because I think that of these 5, the TVR Vision GT would most likely bear more of a resemblance to a street car. I could fully see them making something like a supercar level or a hypercar Vision GT rather than a race car. And what I would actually love to see is a modern reinterpretation of the Speed 12. Imagine what a reimagining of the legendary Cerberus Speed 12 could be like if it stayed true to those original roots of having the intention to be a race car with ultra, swoopy, bellowy aerodynamics, maybe a big rear wing as well, like the original 712 concept had, maybe even that same blue and white livery that legendary vehicle had, with a big, naturally aspirated V12. And being TVR, you already know they ain't going to be doing hybrids. They're going to be raw, they're going to be old school, and of course it would be in Group X, but imagine how much fun you could have with something like a 900 or 1000 horsepower, naturally aspirated TVR Vision GT. I think it could be absolutely awesome. And last, but definitely not least, another vehicle in the similar vein to Hummer, which some people might not agree with, and this is another one of those which I believe could go either way. I could fully imagine this company making something that looks like a street car, but given their history of concept cars and their history of motorsport, I believe they might actually make something pretty incredible. I'm referring to Cadillac. Cadillac is already in Gran Turismo's past. The CN is a monster of a supercar and one of the fastest concept cars of all time. It's always incredibly quick in every game that features it, from Gran Turismo to Test Drive Unlimited to who else has had it? Midnight Club, probably a couple of others too. It's a force to be reckoned with. Then look at my dream concept car, the 16. It's an absolute beast. It's got one of the most outrageously over-the-top engines ever put into any vehicle. And then look to their motorsport, the LMP, the more recent DPI VR, which was a fantastic race car, the ATSV, the CTSV race cars. These are known for being formidable racing machines, deceptively so, because Cadillac on the road has a reputation, especially back in the day, but even still to some degree now, of being kind of the older gentleman's luxury car, kind of like the American version of Mercedes. To some degree, that can be true. But just like Mercedes, they've got a strong right hook, and that right hook has AMG written on it. For Cadillac, that right hook has V written on it, because everything that Cadillac makes with the V moniker is an absolute beast. The more recent CTSVs with well over 600 horses in a luxury platform, they're perfect to rival Mercedes. So imagine some kind of machine that drew on those elements. If it was a street-based vehicle, imagine some over-the-top V model. That would be awesome. If they decided to go the concept route, well, look at their concept cars, the CN, the 16, what was that more recent one, the El Mirage, I believe it was called. They even, I believe, made a hydrogen-powered concept. They didn't actually produce it, but it was like a rendering, a crazy-looking thing. If they went that route, it would be amazing. Then if they turned to the racing forum, something like a CTSV, ATSV, LMP, DPI VR, anything that Cadillac chose to do, I would 100% support, because I already know it would be awesome. It would be fast, it would be powerful, it would probably be the most angular, sharpest, meanest looking Vision GT we've ever had, something which could only be surpassed in that way by the Bertone, and I would love it. And that is my top 5, the 5 manufacturers who I would love to see make a Vision GT car at some point. Of course, there are so many more that you could choose. Try not to pick a manufacturer who's already been announced, though, because that kind of defeats the point of the game. You know, you could say Porsche, but we've already got one. So try to be a little bit more, out there than that. But there are certainly plenty to choose from. I considered a motorcycle manufacturer. I mean, imagine how cool it would be if Kawasaki made a Vision GT car, some lime green absolute monster that redlines at 15,000 RPM, or a Ducati with a maybe car equivalent of a big V-twin thumpy engine. It would be awesome. So, of course, there are plenty of choices that you could go for, so tell me what yours would be down below. And, of course, stick around next Saturday for the next installment of Beards and Cars. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.